All right, so we can record me fumbling around. And I just got to double check the people in the room. So I'll go. That's not what I want. More. How did I even freaking get? Oh, here, stop share. Sorry, it's just sitting there. Stop share. I'll get in the waiting room. Participants. So I'm going to go, sorry, guys. Get in there. No, I'll just send her. I'll just send her the link. Where do I get the share from again? You meeting. Oh, okay, we got her in. All right, now, hey, Fee. We're only just starting because of all my fucking clumsiness. Now I've got to go back. I'm only just literally starting, and I've just got to figure out how to get back to share screen. This is why I'm doing it on the down low. Share screen. Where's the share screen again? Does anyone know where the share screen section is? You can put it in the chat because I can see the chat more. I think it's in here. No, I just had it. I was apps. Was it apps? No. Where is the share screen? It had a share. I just did it before. So if anyone knows, at the bottom of the screen here, this share, that's a different share. Oh, fuck. What was that share? All right. So now I go here. No, that's what I'm sharing now. But what if I'll go back into here. I'll open up my Comfrey presentation, open that up, and then I go to here. It's not that. Like it will be Safari. Oh, here. Yeah. I got that. That's all I want. Share. Oh my gosh, this is so painful. But I'm going to be okay. Once I get going, we'll be all right. Now we're cool. Praise the Lord. And you can't see my face, but what I'll do is I'll do this right now. So you can see my face. And that's all right. It's up there. And I'm only going to do this just to show you the Comfrey that I have. All right. So let me just explain a little bit what's going on. This is the first inaugural herb of the month. And what I am doing, I have created like a community in this platform called School. The community is up, but I'm not like advertising it or pushing it at the moment because all the information isn't on there yet. And basically how a school community works, it's like on a subscription thing. And it's a bit like a Facebook group, except it's private because it'd be just us. It'd be just the people who are in that group can see what's in there. So it's got like a board to chat. But what I'm doing and have already started doing is I'm uploading classes, webinars. I'm going to do this Herb of the Month. So for February is Comfrey. So for the whole of February, I'll be sharing different things about Comfrey, how to make a infused oil, a salve, that sort of thing, or whatever the herb of the month is. There'll be a little uploads and handouts on that month, on that herb for the month. And also for everybody who's already done the Home Healer course, you'll get a year's free subscription. And anyone who signs up to the Home Healer course will get a year's free subscription. So all the notes that you're given in the class will also be up there as well, pretty much. Yeah, so that's the idea of this school community. And what I thought, because as you can see, I'm still fumbling a little bit on the technicalities of it all. So I just thought, I'll do this one and I'll just reach out to you guys so you get a bit of a sense of how the herb of the month will run. I may do the same thing for the next herb, March's herb as well. So that's basically the background of what this is. But let's just get into it. All right. So as I said, the herb of the month is comfrey, and yeah, it's going to let me do this. Okay. So we in Australia, in many places, we just call comfrey, but it does have some other common names, knit bone, bone set, bruise wart, and all those common names speak to the healing qualities of comfrey and what it's best known for, and that is like healing broken bones. And also some people know it to be used like for sprains and that's muscle injury as well. Symphytum officinale, and it's from if anyone grows borage, it's from that same family as well. And as we get into it, some people already might know that comfrey is controversial, and in Australia in 1984 they took it away from clinicians to use internally in practice. So up until 1984, comfrey was used internally in Australia, and I'm going to be sharing how it was used internally. And it's a very controversial decision. And one of my main teachers, Dorothy Hall, she was a big proponent and big lover of comfrey, and she taught us how to use comfrey, despite I studied with her in 2003 and 4. And another teacher of mine, Nancy Evelyn, she was also, I go into her teachings on comfrey in this class. But it's not to be used by any clinician after 1984. All right, so that's comfrey. And I'm going to now try and get rid of this. I think if I do this, yeah. And I'll just open it up when I need it. Okay, so to identify comfrey, if you don't already have it, it's it's a perennial herb, so that means it keeps growing. It can be hard to kill if it's in a happy place. Lance-shaped leaves, which is that sort of sword almost shape, pointy leaves. The little film you can see there, that's taken from one of the students' Robin herb garden. And that's comfrey in flower. When we harvest it for medicinal uses, we tend to harvest it before it goes into flower. But the flowers themselves are a little bit medicinal. Some people use them in teas and that, but generally we use the leaf and the root. And the flowers can be anywhere from white to like you'll see in the picture before, it's quite a blue one or purpley one. And what I've been learning, because I've been, looking into comfrey a little bit more just lately, is we use the officinale one, Symphytum officinale, which is a common comfrey, but apparently the Russian comfrey, there's some more videos there. The Russian comfrey has more of the concerning chemicals, those, oh, I can't say, PA for short. It's on here somewhere. We'll get to that. Anyway, in Home Healer, I like to teach people how herbalists used before we had all these lab tests and all these active constituents and the almost pharmaceutical, well, it's actually called pharmacognosy, which is the study of the chemicals within the plants. In Australia, they tend to teach the herbalists and naturopaths from that pharmacognosy point of view, more so than the traditional. And in the Home Healer course, I do the opposite. I start from the traditional point of view. And one of these ways of identifying plants is the doctrine of signature. And that's when a plant or a fruit, it gives clues to how they work in the body. And herbalists of old, the big thing was to be with and study plants in their natural setting. I've just added somebody. Oh, that's good that it comes up here. Hi, Nicole. How you going? We've only just sort of started, so you haven't missed a lot. I was just talking about Comfrey, and now I'm moving into the doctrine of signatures, which is when a plant gives clues to their affinity with different organs or the way they heal the body. And for Comfrey, the actual leaves themselves are a bit kind of rough and hairy, and some people say like that's a little bit like scar tissue, and Comfrey has that affinity with the skin and injuries. If you're particularly sensitive, it does have like little hairs on it, and for some people they can be a bit irritating. Now, I probably shouldn't. Now I'm just, oh yeah, I think I can do it. I'm just going to hopefully, no, Irene, you're the star for some reason, so I'll try this one. So this is this comfrey leaf Steph gave me, because I don't have a garden at the moment. It's a sad story, but I'm about to move somewhere where I can build a garden. And so Steph, a Home Healer graduate, lives nearby, and she dropped off this comfrey for me on Friday, and I actually kept it in the fridge so it didn't look too wilted. So yeah, so we've got you probably can't see, but it's a bit hairy, and also the thick spine of the leaf also looks like a bone, and that is an indicator too that we use it for the bone healing. It's also mucilaginous. I even Googled how to say that word today, mucilaginous. Because there's a lot, I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of words you say in your head, and then when it comes to say it out aloud, you can't pronounce it. Yeah, mucilaginous. And that means basically that the herb holds a lot of moisture. And that also is very soothing to tissues, injured tissues. It has that soothing quality about it. But when it holds a lot of moisture, when we make our oils, it is good to let them dry out. And the other one, which I'd forgotten about, I didn't forget about it when I read it. I went, oh, yeah, of course. Like I said at the beginning, comfrey grows quite prolifically if it's happy. If comfrey's happy, you can cut it back. You
oh my God. Terrible.
And then it'll just grow back. Nicole, I'm just going to mute you, love. Yeah. All right, cool. So, yeah, so comfrey as a herb, it's known to increase cell proliferation. So when we injure ourselves with cells, we use comfrey to speed that cell replication up of healthy cells, which is why it's known as a knit bone for bone injuries. Okie dokie. Now, what's next? No, wrong one. So as I was sharing in Home Healer, we go from the traditional way of using herbs. That's what we start to learn with. And the first lesson is on the taster herbs. Now, Comfrey taste is both salt and sweety and salty and sweet. Now, a salty herb generally is a balancing herb. It's mineral rich and it's used for like tissues and bones, and it's very rejuvenating, very healing. And sweet herbs are similar in they're also quite nutritious and rebuilding. And they're also known to have that moistening quality, that mucilaginous quality. So you can see just by the taste of a herb, all you need to understand is the taste of herbs, and you can already start to identify certain healing properties that that herb has. Then we get into the energetics, which we in Home Healer, I think that, I can't remember, lesson 2, lesson 3. Anyway, the energetics, so it's very cooling and moistening, and it has that slight astringency. And some people call astringency a taste as well, because astringency is that it comes from the tannins, which are the herbs or the phytochemicals that sort of pucker up tissue, like tighten up tissue. So when we go into our tissue states, this is what we learn in Western herbal medicine. The tissue states were used, you know, from Hippocrates, right back there, right up to like, I think it's like the 1600s, 1700s. But in the Home Healer, I do cover all this in the history of herbal medicine, the actual dates. But the tissue states as a way of prescribing herbs was used for centuries. So there is a real validity in them, and I use the tissue states personally in clinic because it allows you to look at a person holistically and kind of simply at the same time. There's a simpleness in this way of looking at people and herbs. So atrophy is sort of like, you can call it aging, like when you start to age, your tissues just naturally, you know, now I should practice this word as well, atrophy. But it can also happen in some sickness patterns. It can happen, you know, when if somebody gets really sick or injured and they're bedridden, well, their muscles will start to atrophy. Or you might know if you've ever like broken a leg and you have your leg in a cast and you're not using that muscle, that's atrophy. So Comfrey is good for that tissue state. It's good for dry tissue states because it has that moistening. So you can see how we start to connect the energetics with the tissue states. So if you've got a dry tissue state, then you want a moistening herb. And that weakness, we think of like the salty and the sweet, that rebuilding, and laxity, that is the relaxed tissue state. You can think of diarrhea. Diarrhea, the tissues of the intestinal tract are lax, like that. So everything's running out. So Comfrey can be used for laxity. As you go on your herbal journey, you will see that, yes, this herb can do that for a particular tissue state or disease state, but this one's just that bit better, you know? So there are herbs that can help with bone repair, like a teasel or even like horsetail, but Comfrey is better at it, see? But that is part of the journey, and I like to think of herbs like people. You can know somebody for like 40 years and you still keep learning things about them. So herbs are a lot like that. We're always learning more about them, and you will continue to learn things about them as I do. Because I find too, as a herbalist, you kind of use herbs in a particular way, and you'll forget that they do all these other things, and then you'll be reading a book or listening to another practitioner or something, you go, oh my, wow, didn't realize that. So yeah, that's the beauty of the herbs. Actions is when actions you'll see a lot in the in your herbal books. If you've got any herbal medicine books, you may not always see the energetics. So thanks to Matthew Wood, who is a herbalist in America, he really put tissue states back into the language of Western herbal medicine. And I've noticed some of the more modern or the more recent herbal books they will mention the energetics and tissue states, but the actions you'll always see. In the home healer group, you'll have a handout that has all the actions on it and what they mean. And also in the community, the school community that I'm creating, that'll also be in there for something that you can just download. So again, what we've already spoken about in the taste and the energetics, you'll see here in the actions, like volume. It's a wound healer, cell proliferation, that demulcent, that's that mucilage quality about it. And it's also slightly analgesic, which means it helps with pain. Which is another reason it's really good with injuries. Is it the strongest analgesic? No, it's not. But that's also where you move into the world of blending, where you go, okay, I'm going to have this much of that herb, this much of that herb to get the medicine for the person in front of me. The constituents, they are the chemicals in the plant. They can, help us to understand it biochemically. So if your brain is a bit wired that way, you'll love it. And you don't necessarily need to know all this. That's why, like in home healer, I teach a more traditional approach. But they can also be interesting too. And it's something, as you delve deeper into the herbs, you may want to delve deeper into the biochemistry. Now, the pyrrolizidine. The pyrrolizidine alkaloids, which are the PAs, they are the reason that Comfrey got banned in Australia, because they believe that it can cause death via liver failure. In 1984, I think it's 1984 there. But anyway, historically, Comfrey has been used forever. Like I said, my teacher, Dorothy Hall, used it for decades, and it's still used overseas in quite a few countries. And during the month of February, I'm preparing a deep dive into the research of why it was banned, because basically it's really dodgy. And Dorothy Hall fought to keep Comfrey in our clinics back then in the 80s, and she almost lost her house fighting in legal fees. And she also had that, that Men in Black moment. So it was all very dodgy. Affinities, that means what organs or body systems that a particular herb has an affinity with. Like they're the organs that this herb really loves to help. And for Comfrey, it's that musculoskeletal, the integumentary, another word I don't like, skin, basically. The spleen, blood, bone marrow, respiratory system, and digestive system. So I'm about to share how we use Comfrey in those particular body systems. All righty. Now, I can't see chat. If anybody has a question or whatever, feel free to unmute yourself and shout it out. I'm cool with that, and I'll do my best to answer. Okay, so the musculoskeletal system. I might just shrink. I don't know if you can see what I can see, but I'm just going to shrink myself. There we go. So we can see this instead. Okay. Oh, sorry, Doc. Oh, God. There we go. So the musculoskeletal system. So the bones. What Comfrey is most known for is broken bones, anything from a tiny little fracture to like a full snap. I should know from anatomy and physiology and all that, and first aid, a snap. Compound fracture, that's when the bone comes out of the skin. But anyway, any of the above, any sort of broken bone or fracture. What Comfrey does, it will reduce the swelling, the trauma and the bleeding, and it reduces the pain. So it just helps to calm down all those healing mechanisms that when we injure ourselves, they can get a little bit carried away. So Comfrey helps to keep it all in check. As I said, it can also help to reduce the pain. And then it stimulates a healthy bone growth. Comfrey works topically in this way. So if you want to be cautious, there is no reason why you cannot apply Comfrey topically. And I will go into the ways we can do that as well. Before 1984 in Australia, you would also take Comfrey internally. If you're a practitioner, you prescribe it internally, but it's always used at low doses, and we'll cover that as well. Interestingly, and what you may not know, is that Comfrey is good for bone cancer. We've got bone marrow cancer, which is that multiple myelomas, but also when any cancer metastasizes and moves into the bones, we can use Comfrey. Because if you think about it, Comfrey helps the healthy cells to replicate, where cancer is unhealthy cells replicating. Anything that starts with osteo, including osteoporosis, this is, again, more internally. If you're a clinician before 1984, you would use it in this way. You can use it topically. Osteomyelitis, anything with an itis is inflammation. So it's quite nasty if you have like infections get into the bones. That might happen through wounds or, blood-borne diseases and all that sort of stuff. Comfrey is good for this. Any sort of arthritis. And topically, if you make salves or oils for arthritis, put Comfrey in there. You can use Comfrey alone, or you might want to add something like St. John's wort hypericum, which will be our herb in December. But hypericum is good for nerve inflammation. So if you think about it, any of those sort of arthritic conditions where there's inflammation and irritation of the nerves, or you could put Comfrey in there with like ginger or cayenne or what's the one that the Asians, the really strong one is in tiger balm. But yeah, you get the idea. So Comfrey traditionally, and there's a famous homeopath, German guy, but anyway, Comfrey has a real affinity, in particular with the knees. So anyone with any sort of knee issue, making up a salve and putting that on knees is a good thing. And I just paused because what I didn't mention, and I will mention now, is it's not ideal, unfortunately, to use Comfrey if you have any sort of, like, you've had an injury and you got screws or plates or that sort of thing. I have not experienced it myself, but I have heard and trusted herbalists will say it, is because Comfrey encourages healthy cell replication. It has popped screws out, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but also grown over fake joints and that, which can cause complications. So you probably don't necessarily want to use it in that way. Some operations for bone healing, they put like screws, but then they take them out. So if they're going to take them out, you can just wait. And for some reason, I like to see myself when I'm talking. It makes me feel like I'm not alone. But yeah, so you might want to wait until they take the screws out, and then you go for it. The other thing to really remember is if there's an open wound, you need to make sure that you have some sort of antiseptic herb, antibacterial herb in with the comfrey. I think we go on here, the next one. Yeah, so I go a bit into here. I'm going to shrink myself again so that I can see you all. I mean, so I can see the screen. All right, so going into wounds, obviously we cut through the skin. So because comfrey encourages that healthy cell replication, if you've got a deep wound or a wound that has been exposed to the outside environment, there's a risk of infection, and that's why we use herbs like calendula to kill any of the bacteria in the wound. So if you only put comfrey on a wound, it can actually seal the infection in. And that can, worst case scenario will be septicemia, which is called blood poisoning, which can be life-threatening, which we don't want. All you need to do, though, is add calendula or a lot of the essential oils as well, like lavender, eucalyptus, are also antibacterial. Other pungent herbs are antibacterial, but that's why it's quite common to see comfrey and calendula in salves, and that's the reason why, because calendula is another wound healer, but it's also a wound cleaner, so it helps to prevent any bacterial infections. And calendula was actually used on the war in battle right up until World War II. So it's a good one. Now, so we can use comfrey on any rashes, whether that's like gravel rash from an injury or itchy rashes. And itchiness goes from, localized to all over. We can oil, infused oil would be a good one to use there because it's so easy to spread. Now, if you know, keratin is that like the skin protein that if it's not behaving itself, it will build up and you can get like lumps and bumps on your skin. It can happen as we age as well. So comfrey can be used on any of these sort of hardening skin conditions, if you like, and help to get the healthy cells to grow instead of the buildup of the keratin. Also any bruising, inflammation, any swelling. Now, again, for cancer, you see, Dorothy, my teacher, used comfrey a lot for cancer, and so did my other teacher, Nancy Evelyn, as well. A lot of cancers actually begin in epithelial cells, and epithelial cells line a lot of our organs, and that's why the cancer can start there. And comfrey works to help those cells to replicate in a healthy way, and in that way can be used for cancers because it seems to get like really deep, and then the healing begins really deep, and then goes upwards and outwards. And for this, you can use it internally, externally. You can use it like on some of the skin cancers, like breast cancers. You can make a salve. It's used topically as well as internally. Post-surgery. So if anybody has had a operation of any description and you are a clinician that was working before 1984, you would give your patients comfrey internally, and comfrey is what we call a low dose herb. So anywhere from 5 to 10 drops 2 to 3 times a day. And I will go into the way we blend comfrey as well in a moment. But yeah, so any wounds, and what's good if you or a loved one is having any sort of surgery, and you might not want to get them Comfrey straight away or use it, but Rescue Remedy is really good. And you may be familiar with Tromil. It's like a homeopathic. It comes in a cream, but also in little pills. That is really a good treatment to use like in the first day, like straight after surgery. And because it's homeopathic, it's really safe. And if you can't get your hands on that, the arnica is also a good one. When people have had some sort of surgery, their wounds are bandaged. Leave them alone. I'm a bit of a modern medicine is at its peak, it's at its most best in acute situations like a heart attack, stroke, anaphylactic, car accidents, and also in surgery. They can do phenomenal things, modern medicine, like crazy things, the way they can put people back together. Herbal medicine and natural health really comes into our own for preventative and also for the chronic issues. So if a loved one is had some surgery, we don't start taking off all their bandages and throw, comfrey down them. You can just wait, because once the bandages are off, then you can start to bring in the herbs and use compresses, an oil salve, depending on the actual injury. Now, ulcers, Comfrey is very good for ulcers. So is licorice if you're a bit nervous about Comfrey. We mainly use the leaf here. The root is the one that has more of the pyrrolazine alkaloids. And the leaves have got that sort of tissue building and that's soothing, because when it comes to an ulcer, whether that's like ulcer from externally, diabetes, that sort of stuff, old age, or even like sort of ulcer conditions in the digestive tract, Comfrey covers and soothes it, and also encourages that healthy cells to rebuild underneath. Fungating tumors, I've actually seen, I don't know if anyone else has seen a fungating tumor. If you have, you'll never forget it, because they are, it's a cancer that is like ulcerates, but the ulcer, it looks like a cauliflower is the best way to describe it. And because they're ulcers, they leak, and that can actually, long term, it's a health risk. It can kill you basically, because your body is losing precious fluids, and you have to constantly be replenishing them. And if you're very sick already, that's harder on the body. So Comfrey you could use it as a compress over any external ulcers. You can also use it, for varicose veins. And I put meadowsweet there. The reason that is, and I might as well go into it now, is when if I got it on here, we go into here. Comfrey thickens the blood, because it's again making healthy cells replicate, blah 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 blah. There is a risk. What amount of a risk? Hard to say, but because we know this, we always act sensibly with common sense. So if you're using Comfrey internally, we will put one of the blood thinning herbs with it, or the blood balancing herbs. Externally, we're putting our antiseptic herbs like our calendula with it. Internally, we will put, that's if you're a clinician before 1984, you would use herbs like white willow, meadowsweet, garlic, any of those herbs that balance the viscosity of the blood. And because Comfrey is the cornerstone spleen remedy. Now, this is more the teachings that I also learned with Nancy Evelyn, who used Comfrey prior to 1984 in her clinic, and she also used it a lot with cancer and autoimmune diseases and that sort of stuff. So um, our spleen manages our red and white blood cells. Our spleen will kind of get rid of any red blood cells that look like they've, had their day, so to speak, and shoot them off to the liver. And it also helps with the balance of your white blood cells. You may have heard or have somebody who had a ruptured spleen. That can happen most commonly like in car accidents or like a big blow to the body. The spleen can actually rupture. And again, that can be life-threatening if it's not identified. So in those cases, the surgeon will actually take the spleen out because we can live without a spleen. But if you or somebody you love has had that spleen taken out, then you've lost that little kind of management area of the body. So therefore, you would want to be supporting the body as a whole and doing a little bit of that work, whether you use Comfrey, but also even if you're just using your lymphatic herbs, like ones like red clover, echinacea, fenugreek. Those sorts of herbs can step in when somebody's had a splenectomy, like they had their spleen taken out. If you have spleen issues, they can often appear like a decreased white blood cell count, but this is moving into the areas. It does not hurt. I'm of the belief it doesn't hurt to go and get things diagnosed. Some people go, they never want to go to a doctor ever, and I totally understand that as well. But sometimes when things are going a little bit odd, you might want to get a diagnosis, and then you yourself can make a decision on what to do with that. So you might, if you've got a very low white blood cell count, a very high blood cell count, or a high red blood cell count, anything like that, from there, you or a loved one may be diagnosed with an autoimmune disease or some blood condition or, God forbid, like a leukemia or something like that. But then with that diagnosis, it's up to you or your loved one to decide what to do with it, what path you want to take. Because at the end of the day, it's your body. And fear is not knowledge. So in those circumstances, you push past the fear and get knowledge. Because when you have knowledge, then you know that you're making an empowered decision. Because sometimes in the medical world, if you get caught up in their roundabout, there is a lot of fear. And they have one model, which has some amazing benefits, but it's not the only model. And here we're working with that traditional holistic model. And in like China, with the traditional Chinese medicine, with the Ayurvedic medicine, even a lot of European countries, they work together. But we come under that more American model, which is very pharmaceutical driven, and we have all the answers, and we're going to make every bit of money we can from sickness. And so when you buck up that system, it's good. If you're feeling fear, just step away, shut it all up, go and explore some other viewpoints, and then come back and you can make a decision that's out of wisdom and knowledge as opposed to fear. Yeah. So Dorothy Hall, she used Comfrey a lot, particularly with children with leukemia. And because Comfrey has that real affinity with the spleen and the blood and the bone marrow, she had a lot of success, to the point where the hematologist who was working with all these leukemic kids actually rang her and said, why do the patients who come see you, why do they have such better success throughout treatment and recovery than the other ones? And Dorothy told this specialist, it's Comfrey, and explained it. And then when the government started to come down on Comfrey, she actually rang this guy, and because she was trying to get a case together, and this is in the 80s. I think today there's way more public support for natural health, but back in the 80s, it was still seen by most people as just woohoo, cray cray people. So she was trying to garner enough support because she actually went to court to fight for Comfrey. And this particular doctor just went, don't know you, who are you, why are you calling me? And that really upset her. Really, yeah. She took a real blow for Comfrey, old Dorothy, and she did share the whole story with us, including the men in black being threatening her in a lift. So there's a lot to that story. But she did have a lot of success treating people with blood cancers like leukemia. Also, with that affinity with the blood, any anemia, particularly people that have, anemia, and there's no real, there's certain people that it's just really tricky to get their iron levels up. You work on the actual, obviously, dietary intake, you work on their gut to make sure they're absorbing the iron. You're doing all these things, yet it keeps coming back low. Comfrey can help to resolve those sorts of anemias as well. Remember in the beginning when we were talking about the sweet herbs that have that mucilage and rebuilding quality, and Comfrey's one of that. Comfrey has a long, long history back into time for use for respiratory condition, lung conditions. And in the home healer, I use the respiratory system to teach tissue states because I find it's the easiest one to understand. Because if you think of a dry cough, we all know what a dry cough is, and we all know what a wet cough is. So that's dry tissue, wet tissue. So Comfrey can help with that sort of dry, irritating coughs, the ones that by cooling and moistening the tissues of the lungs. You can use it, for asthmatics, though personally I do love, like I said, there's herbs that have these qualities, but then there's ones that just have a greater affinity. So for asthmatics, I do love my elecampane and my grindillia, my Marlene. But Comfrey has been used for asthma as well. And bronchitis, it can be wet, but it's irritated, a bit like, ulcers are wet, but they're more like lax and leaking. And that, the bronchitis, so it soothes that tissue, but it also helps it to heal and also to tonify with that little kind of astringent effect. So for using Comfrey in your home or with loved ones, there are many ways which we've sort of covered throughout this chat. We've got a poultice. This is really good for urgent, on the spot sort of thing. You're in the garden, sprained your ankle. A poultice is when you actually mush up the leaves and you put it like straight on the skin, and then you can wrap it. And I did this ages ago, man. I'll find the photos and I'll put them in the home healer community group, because I used to run, well, I still kind of do, but I was meeting a friend to run in the morning, and it was in the winter, and that's when the weather, like, it's freaking dark really early, and my friend was at the bottom of a very long steep driveway that I had, pitch black, and about 5:30 in the morning we used to meet, and I fell in a hole that I forgot. There's a hole in the driveway, and I felt my ankle, and I hit the deck. I have a high pain tolerance. I actually fainted from the pain. It was that bad. And my friend said all she could hear was this, this moaning. And then she came up. And it was me. And I remember coming to, and like if you sleep at a hotel or a different place, takes you, you're disorientated. I remember kind of going, where am I? And seeing her feet and then realizing where I was. And my ankle blew up like nothing else. Like I said, I do have photos of it. And, like a good herbalist, I was like, "Oh, no way I'm going to the fucking emergency department and sitting there for 500 million hours." So I had the Comfrey, and that's what I did. I just made a poultice, covered it, wrapped it up, and I kept it like that. I kept replacing that every couple of hours. Um, yeah, and it took a while to heal that one. It was pretty freaking nasty. Um, yeah, but yeah, Comfrey, I use Comfrey to heal with that. Um, so that's a poultice. An infused oil, I'm making one at the moment because I want to do a little tutorial on it. Now, comfrey, as we've learnt, is very moisture rich, and any herb that is full of moisture, if you make an infused oil, you're at risk of that oil going rancid, like bacteria getting into it. So what we do is we dry that's been dried purely just by sitting here from Friday. You dry the herb, not entirely, because the moisture just also helps the oil pull out the healing properties. But yeah, so we want to dry it first so it doesn't go rancid. There's other things some herbalists will do. They might put a little bit of alcohol on the dry herb to try and preserve it more, or put essential oils in there. But when you're using more moisture-rich herbs, it's also a good idea to strain it, at the 4 weeks or the 6 weeks. Because I don't know about any of you who make infused oils, but I've had infused oils sitting there for like 12 months or more. But the moisture, like something like comfrey, you want to press it out sooner rather than later. But once you have that infused oil, I like olive oil. I just like the history of olive oil, because Western herbal medicine, we go back to the Greeks and all that. And olives do have their own healing properties, but other herbalists will use avocado oil or almond oil as well. So, and also sunflower oil too. But yeah, personally, I like my olive oil. Olive oil does have a bit of a smell, and one of the reasons some practitioners choose other oils if they're making products, or they want the smell of the herb. Yeah. And I heard a good saying the other day too. You can ask 100 herbalists how to do something and you'll get 100 different answers. And it's very true. And I think it's a lot like chefs, like chefs in the kitchen, they've all got their own way. Could be the simplest thing like scrambled eggs, and they'll all have their own little way of doing it. And you will come up with your own little way. There's little things that you will do that just resonate with you. It's the same with making herbal medicine. Decoction. Oh, what I missed out on here, which I have to add, from the infused oil, those of you who have done the home healer course, we made a salve, and that's basically when you mix the infused oil with the beeswax, and then you've got a salve, which is thicker and we can use to coat. It doesn't spread as well, but it's good for like more localized injuries and such. A decoction, when you use the root of a plant, of a herb, we use decoctions, which are common also in Chinese medicine. And a decoction just basically is like a tea, but it's simmered over a period of time. So it might be an hour, 2 hours. So it's like that low simmer to help pull all the healing properties out of the root, because obviously roots are thicker. A leaf, the tea leaf, that's the one that people use for, any sort of like ulcerative, you can say ulcerative colitis, any sort of inflammatory bowel disease, that sort of thing, or lungs as well. When I put together the like the handout, if you like, I have found this brilliant report written, I think it's in 1994, by an American herbalist, where she really delves really deeply into the research that they used to ban comfrey. And as you can imagine, it's very insightful because I'm just going off the top of my head, but I will put this together during the month of February. You would have to have, I think it's like 10 cups of leaf tea a day, or was it 1 cup for 4 years or 10 cups for 4 years? Some crazy, crazy amount. The person who actually passed away from liver failure due to comfrey, they were having, I think it was 10 cups. So that might be where I get the stats mixed up. I think they were drinking 10 cups of leaf comfrey a day, plus taking comfrey capsules for an extended amount of time, which that's overdose. You can overdose on oranges. We can overdose on anything. So, common sense is not that common. So it's not a hard thing. Comfrey is not a hard herb to be sensible with. And the risk factors are quite low, which is why it's been used forever. And I will be compiling that research. So if you're a clinician and working before 1984, you would use it, but also for you guys, it's about having the knowledge, and then I'm not making decisions for you. You are making your own decisions. I'm just giving information, and do with it what thy will. And the other argument too is a lot of the reasons that we use comfrey, whether it's for a cough or whether it's a broken bone, are kind of short term anyway. So you don't really use the herb. If you use it correctly, you're not going to use it for a long time anyway. As a tincture, we're using 5 to 10 drops, depending. If it's acute, you might go to 10 drops 3 times a day for a little while, and then you bring it down to 5 drops twice a day, 5 drops once a day. So just to finish on the sensibilities of using comfrey, is that open wound. We always use an antiseptic herb. When we're using it internally, we use it with a blood balancing herb. I don't necessarily like to say blood thinning because herbs tend to balance more. So it balances the blood viscosity. And unless you're taking super high doses, if your blood's balanced, it's not going to make it, if you've got good blood viscosity, it's not necessarily going to make it so thin that you bleed out when you use these herbs. But if you're taking a blood building herb like comfrey, and you possibly already got some imbalance in your spleen, in your body, those herbs will help to make a full medicine. And the other one to put in there, which I noticed yesterday, but I didn't change it, apologies, was to put a liver support herb in there. Just to help to process those alkaloids. And a liver support herb would be something like dandelion root, St. Mary's thistle, that sort of herb. And so topically with antiseptic herb, internally with a blood balancing herb and a liver tonic. And externally, also be careful if you're using comfrey with anybody that's got screws or plates. You may not want to do that. You may want to wait till the plates are out, or choose other ways to support them. I think that, yeah, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed. Please tell me that I've been recording. Hopefully I've recorded all this, because I if you want to have a copy of it, I'll send it to you. As far as the school community goes, because it's like if you're going to join the Home Healer group, if you haven't already interested in it, you will get like 12 months free membership. If you've already done the Home Healer, I'm going to be giving you 12 months, but I'm just still tweaking a few things first before. I don't want to give it to you right now because there's a bit on there, but not heaps. So I'm just going to upload a few more things on there, and then I'll be reaching out to all the old students and giving them the 12 months so they can check it out as well. So if I go, I'll go stop sharing. There we go. Oh, I got to put my sunnies on because these are scripted. I can see you too. Oh yeah, the liver. I covered that. Yeah. Back. I could not see the chat while I was screen sharing. So it's probably something I should look at. Yeah, so like I said, the research that I have been finding, and Dorothy told us all this when I did her class way back when, was the research that they have used to take Comfrey off clinicians is very dodgy. And another interesting one I stumbled on is a particular pyrazzoline alkaloid that they blame for all this damage is found at higher amounts in the Russian comfrey as opposed to the common comfrey, which is another interesting point. And yeah, the super. So I'm just put my studies on so I can just read the chat now. If you want to ask something, you can unmute. Comfrey root pulse on my knee with great success, pain and healing. That's awesome, Alice. Yeah. Oh, good, you're chatting. My brother broke his rib. Yeah, Comfrey's awesome. Yeah. Is a tincture for a cough? Yeah, you can. Yeah, the tea would be good. But honestly, I tend to think more like Marlene or licorice. They're both got that I literally Google, you know, when you Google and you get the person to say the word, mucilaginous qualities, that moisture. And they're also got the antispasmodic, which Comfrey doesn't have. So for a cough, yeah, I look more towards those. But again, if you're all living out in the middle of nowhere and all you got is Comfrey, then yeah, you could use the tea or the tincture. I like the tea when it comes to if you want that the mucilage, you want that real soothing because I know like internally I use marshmallow as well for ulcers or just inflammatory gut things that we used to use slippery elm for, because slippery elm's not what it used to be due to the over farming. But marshmallow, all those sort of mucilaginous herbs, if you steep them longer in water, it pulls more of the mucilage chemicals out. So therefore, yeah, I like a tea in that way. Though I do use the tinctures with success. Thanks, Irene. I'll see you later. She's gone. So if anyone else has any questions or anything else, and gardeners as well, we use it. I mean, comfrey is used for so many things, but as a in the compost, and like the organic gardeners. So if you go onto YouTube, a lot of the organic or the what's that other one? Organic and biodynamic, all those guys, permaculture. Yeah, they're very into the comfrey as a in the compost or as a tea, like on their plants. Yeah. All righty. So if nobody has got any questions, I am going to upload this on YouTube, but what I'm doing for now is it'll be private. I'm going to edit a bit, like me stumbling around the freaking start trying to figure out how to and I'm going to upload it onto YouTube, but it'll be private, and then I could just send you guys a link if you just feel like listening to it. And yeah, lovely to see your face, B. And how'd you go, Nicole? Okay? Yeah, good. Awesome. All right, guys, have a lovely Sunday.
Great to see you, Ellie.
And yeah. So I'll let you know when the next herb of the month is, because I'll probably do it like this again as well. All right?
Thank you.
All right. See you later, guys. Yeah.